plenty of people are good at finding sites, but not so many are as good at capital raising and working with other people's money.
You are listening to the Property Developer Podcast, your home for tips, ideas, and inspiration to help take your developing to the next level. Now here's your host, Justin Getty.
Hello and welcome to episode 98 of the show. Thanks for joining me. How are you going? Doing well? How are your projects progressing? Everything on track? I'm doing fine. Thank you very much. Enjoying the warmer summer weather in Melbourne. It feels like things are well and truly underway now this year, with everything starting to happen, everyone back at work, kids are back at school, getting that structure back into the daily life. Got a great show coming up for you today. We're talking to a developer who's got some great lessons to share about what he's learnt in his developing journey so far. But before we get to that, here's a quick project update of what I've been working on my Cambridge Road project. We're still in construction. We're still doing some internal fittings on the back townhouses, and they're still working on the upper level cladding on the front townhouses. On my other project, still waiting to get the results from the initial environmental audit that was done to find out what we're dealing with there. And on my sales campaign for my townhouse, we're still going with that, but we just got somebody who said they're really interested in the property, which is exciting. So fingers crossed that we can come to some kind of agreement with them. It'd be nice to get that property sold and get someone living in there who's going to love having a life in that property. And before we get to today's guest, just a couple of quick promo announcements. One for my book, Become a $1 Million Property Developer. It's continuing to move quite nicely. So if you want to get your hands on a copy of my book, head over to propertydeveloperpodcast.com/book and grab yourself a copy there. It's the book that I wish was around when I was thinking about getting into property development. A quick shout out for the property developer training. Lots of people signed up last month, which was fantastic. If you are interested in getting into property development, then be sure to head over to propertydevelopertraining.com and check it out. I'm actually working on some new content at the moment for a new training to sit inside the training around how to get people to invest in your projects. So that will be good. And of course, the quiz. If you want to find out how ready you might be to become a property developer, then head over to propertydevelopertraining.com/quiz and take that quiz. All right, let's get to today's guest, Matt Campbell from Kyabel. Matt has a background in delivering IT projects, so brought his understanding of project management and problem solving to his property development career. And he's now currently delivering 17 development projects across southeast Queensland. And Matt is involved with all stages of a project, from site acquisition through construction through to completion. In this discussion, we cover how a change in thinking helped him take his developing to the next level, a key lesson he learnt about raising capital, and how branding can give power to your development projects. Keep an ear out for a niche project that Matt is itching to get started on. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this discussion, and I kicked it off by asking Matt about his favourite food.
Oh, it'd have to be some type of Italian pasta, maybe spaghetti. Pretty simple, but I love a good Italian meal. Yes, I don't know why, because I got Scottish blood in me with the Campbell surname, but yeah.
Yeah, could have picked you for more of a soup man.
Funny that. Okay.
What kind of spaghetti are we talking about? A homemade job or going out for somewhere specific?
Definitely going out, Italian seafood marinara or something like that too. Any type of Italian pasta, but definitely something I typically don't have to cook.
Yeah, because
is a good meal.
when it comes to the spaghetti bolognese, there's often the secret recipe that everybody has for their own awesome bolognese.
Yeah, look, I'm aspirational, but got a few things ahead of me over the next 5 years I want to achieve.
And mastering the spaghetti bolognese isn't one of them.
Uber Eats does a good job for now.
Well, you've already sort of started talking about the future, but before we get to that, let's go into the past. So
Yes.
tell us a bit about your business, Kyabel, or maybe go back a bit further and tell us how you got into property before we then move into the business.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So I've always had an entrepreneurial flair. I have probably always been looking for the right avenue for me, but I did start in IT and software development and progressed through management. And over the last 15 years have been effectively doing project management, but 10 of that was in IT project management. I've always had a love for property and I've over the years, done numerous renovations and things like that. But for me, my background is in IT, and I found it quite a logical transition from one industry to the other. I have had a lot to learn in construction and property development, but project management principles have stood me in good stead as a solid foundation.
And what would they be, or what have they been?
Well, scope, managing resources, managing risk specifically, issue escalation, managing stakeholders. So just the core principles. Whilst it's not, an IT data center or, rolling out a new IT network infrastructure, the principles really are very, very similar. It's a people business, property development first and foremost. And, trust the process is a really key attribute for me. Really lean on the experts in the team and manage issues by exception is typically the approach, or just get right on the forefront ahead of time. And open, honest communication is probably a massive guiding light for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a development is just a big project management exercise, is it not? Particularly when you move into construction.
Correct. Yeah. And I've had to cut my teeth, on the splitters, the small scale subdivisions, and I'm about to buy my 20th project. And I've had some great mentors along the way, not formal mentors, but definitely people that have had an invested interest, from financing projects to actually the construction of my projects. Those people that just want to see the outcome be a successful one for all. And I've learned a lot from that, and that's definitely helped me transition from one industry to another. Yeah, but always a student, always learning. And I think that underlying passion of property early on has been very helpful. That positive curiosity on how we do things better, quicker, more efficiently. Yeah.
I am yet to encounter one of my own projects or hear of any other projects that didn't have some issues along the way that resulted in learning opportunities, Matt.
Correct. Yes. I think every one of the projects I've done to date has had something different or new to tackle. And I think, it's an attitude thing, just to always find a way. And at first, it might not always be obvious what that way is, but through good counsel and again through the expertise of the team, there's typically a way that appears, to solve a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually it involves time or money, Matt, and it's bad when it's both.
Hey, that's a bit more to the point. You're right.
Before we jump into, you've already touched on some of your experience. Why property? What was it that drew you in?
Yeah, I had a change in marital circumstances 5 years ago, and really just sort of looked at my life in terms of what I'd achieved and where I wanted to go, and probably identified I had some limiting beliefs around what I could do in property. And that's something that I've identified and grown through. I probably always wanted to do property development, but for many years thought, I couldn't do that. And when I really unpacked it and threw myself into several education courses and really, assessed my thinking at the time, I realized it was holding me back. So yeah, education's been a really, really big part of, I guess, my transition again from one industry to another. Yeah.
And are you willing to share with us what those limited beliefs were, or what you needed to unpack to free you up or allow you to take that next step?
Yeah, I guess it was just a false reality that I had just lived with and couldn't quite see it at the time. And when I did assess where I really wanted to go with my life and my career over the next 20, 30 years, and as I started to surround myself with people that were in the property industry, I started to realize that it was possible. But I had to get some new skill, I had to get some new knowledge, because those two helped me get some confidence, right, to actually go do this myself. So I think by being in a lot of these property groups and property seminars and learning, I've evolved into who I am and who my business is today. But I definitely had to look at myself in the mirror and realize, well, at the end of the day, the success I desire is 100% with me. It's not up to anyone else. And so that's probably it in a nutshell, Justin. Like, I was the one that was holding, me back and for my family and my kids. And yeah, so, and to this day, I love reading, and I make that as a discipline in my life to read books that challenge my thinking and, enjoy hanging around people that have achieved, great success in this industry as well. And I'm always a student, really, at the end of the day.
Yes, I fully agree with you. It's one of the key things I share with people if they ever ask. It's about how to get into property or being successful, and it's really simple. It's just take accountability for everything that's going to happen in your life, and don't look around and wait for someone else to do it or blame somebody else if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and not to excuse it, but I probably have become a product of my previous environments and couldn't quite see it. So yes, being accountable, taking responsibility and ownership for my future was really what it came down to. And so yeah, some of those limiting beliefs just changed over time, and again, getting some new skill and some new knowledge on how to find sites and how to raise money and ultimately buy projects was really key. And then, the running of the projects came a bit more naturally to me, even though there were new hurdles in this new industry, but that's really where the project management kicked in for me. At the moment, I would have a third of the projects either a quarter sold, a quarter on the market, and a quarter in construction, and the remaining quarter in design. So it's fairly well balanced across Southeast Queensland, typically Brisbane City Council. But we do have a Southeast Queensland focus in terms of finding sites. Yeah.
We'll come to that shortly, but let's go back to the early days. What did you cut your teeth on? What was your first project? Tell us about those first tentative steps.
My first project was probably an 8 out of 10 in difficulty, because it was a corner lot and a corner lot splitter, but it invoked all the subdivision rules. It involved a relocation of a Queenslander, a renovation of a house, and it had a lawful point of discharge that involves a built form component, being the car park back to the street. So yeah, it's definitely was a 7, 8 out of 10 in difficulty. We bought it very, very well. I learned a lot about the negotiation. It's actually with a builder that was in distress, and we're able to meet on site with the agent and agree a great price for this splitter in Toowong in Brisbane. And on that project, it was my first $0 down project too. So I managed to find a money partner interstate in Sydney who was aligned with me on values and also was aspirational. And so with his resources and my time and skill and geographic advantage, we were able to buy that and run that project. But it was make or break around the stormwater component. And of the 4 options we had, it was option C that got us the development approval, but it's been the costly one because, we've had to build a carport as part of the subdivision to be able to get the stormwater off the property. But I've learned a lot from that one, yeah.
Were you aware of that issue when you bought the site, or was it something that came up post acquisition?
I would say probably one of the best things about project management is we learn how to identify risk, assess risk, and have mitigation. So before buying it, we did have 4 options to get stormwater off. I was getting a bit nervous when we were at option C because we had exhausted approvals from 3 neighbours across 5 lots to, naturally run the stormwater off. 2 had signed, but the 3rd had said yes, but they would never sign the consent. So we demonstrated to council that we've exhausted this option and we have to try another option. So I can say yes. We had identified that as the major risk, but you know what? The strength of my team, my civil designer, and leaning on the team again. Some of those project management skills in coordinating an outcome, and then sort of making an assessment on what is the true risk and have we got a way forward.